Excuse me? Oh, no attachment. All right. Good evening. This meeting of the School Administrative Unit Number 12 School Board and the Londonderry School District School Board is called to order. Let's see. I wonder if the Old Home Day goddess would favor us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. While you're on your feet, Kathy, first order of business is questions, announcements, and presentations, and I do believe Ms. Wagner has one.
I'm going to give these to Mary, so she can give these to everybody. Old Home Days this week. I'm asking all of you to pray to the weather gods to make sure that it goes without a hitch, but I think we're going to do it. It's pretty much the fun we always have. There are a few new things. So I'll go through the agenda very quickly so you guys know. There is a website. It's called oldhomeday.com or Old Home Days because people get that mixed up, .com. You can download a brochure there. All the forms are there. It talks about the detours and just goes over all of the events. So on Wednesday, we're having the senior barbecue and concert on the Common, which we always have. And the Wyndham Spring Swing Band will be playing there. So that is that's Wednesday. Thursday is our annual Kids Night. The times have changed on that. It's from 5:30 to 8 because we added a new event this year, which is Movie Mania, which starts at 9 and goes to 11. And the movie is Grown Ups with Adam Sandler. On Friday, we're doing the police fire softball game. We're going to have the concert sold out in front of the high school, and we'll have the fireworks. And they start at 8:45. There is no rain date on the fireworks. On Saturday, the fun begins. Hot air balloon rides behind Matthew Thornton via Remax, and all of that, the money's collected there goes to Dollars for Scholars. The Lundgren 5K road race will be at 8. Registration takes place before that in the gym. There's also the Londonderry, the Christian Fellowship Church, Orchard Christian Fellowship, is doing a continental breakfast. It's always a good time. You can get coffee, donuts, bagels. I think they even have pancakes, and all the money that is donated to them they give to various charities. The baby contest is from 9 to 10 in the cafeteria, the Londonderry High School cafeteria. The parade is 10:30 at the middle school, rain or shine. The Lions Club will be holding their events across the street, as always. Another new event is the fair, and that's at the Grange, and people will be bringing in all different kinds of home-baked goods, art, I think yarn products, I can't remember all of them, photographs, and that's our new addition. So the fair starts at 10 and goes till noon is where the judging is, and then the public can view everything and taste and try everything out. The Morrison House is having their Revolutionary War reenactment, so Captain Morrill will be down there with the cannon, shooting the cannon off. He does enjoy doing that. They do enjoy that a lot. They also have a revolutionary setup. We're also going to have a live blacksmith in there, so that'll be interesting to have a blacksmith. The booths will be on the Common, as always. The Londonderry Sings is from 1 to 3 at the Londonderry High School cafeteria. How many contestants are you up to? 5. That's it. We need more. So everybody who wants to sing, please sing. Call.
Yeah, well, no, wait a minute.
Hey, the more the merrier. Wildlife Encounters will be there with their animal show. Bingo. It wouldn't be a night without bingo. And this year we have raised over $4,700 in prizes for the 3 events, Londonderry Sings, Bingo, and the baby contest. So our sponsors and gift certificate givers and everything has just been fabulous. At 6:30, I think they're starting at the Student Council, which they have really taken over the event, I have to say. Kids of this school are very impressive. They've taken over Applestock, and it's become their event. So that will be on Saturday night on the Common, and they're pretty excited about it. They'll be selling pizza and popcorn, and they'll have other events and bands there. So that goes through all the events on Saturday, and then on Sunday, we end the event with the Christian concert. We'll have games and stuff. The YMCA always does that. Wheelbarrow races, pie eating contest, and those kinds of things. So it looks like it's going to be a good event. We just need the weather to cooperate, and all of the volunteers. I want to say a big thank you, and it's very important to list, if you would just give me the moment to list our sponsors who have come through for us this year, because without their help, we couldn't put this event on. And our platinum sponsors, which are 1,000 more, are Cracker Barrel, Dana-Farber, Freezer Warehouse, Granite Ridge Energy, Hampshire First Bank, the House of the Samurai, Imageability Inc., Lundgren Chiropractic, oh my God, I can't talk, I'm sorry, Market Basket, Murray's Auto Recycling, Orchard Christian Fellowship, Pillsbury Realty, Prudential Verani Realty, and Stonyfield. Our gold sponsors, 500 or more, were Central Communications Corp., Coke, Continental Paving, Londonderry Lions Club, Manchester Boston Regional Airport, Pepsi, Shady Hill Greenhouse. Our silver sponsors are Cabot Cheese, Dairy News, Giovanni's of Londonderry, Let's Play Music and Make Art, Peabody Funeral Homes of Londonderry and Derry, Southern New Hampshire Montessori School, and Taekwondo Karate at the Lions. So that's it. And I have gotten some questions, because this is going to be the bad part. I'm being a little bad. I read in the paper today that Derry's holding their deliberative on August 23rd, too, so I think it might make sense for you guys to be available on the Common, because I think people are going to have questions because of what's going on with their deliberative, and ours is exactly the same day. So I don't know if you're going to be at the Leo booth.
Well, actually, I was going to say, don't forget the live radio broadcast starring our own Nancy Hendricks.
Not true.
Not
solo.
We've had this discussion. So Nancy and I will be there, and I was going to ask any of you guys who were in the neighborhood, and all you guys who are in the neighborhood, to stop by and say hi and talk on the radio, and we'll certainly bring that up. And if we want to get up on stage and talk about it too, we could probably arrange that.
Yeah.
If there's stage time.
I think it is important that I know the Leo booth is on the Common, and if you guys are around, if people have questions, because I'm sure there's a lot of confusion going on now that Derry's got their deliberative happening exactly on the same day as ours. So you're reading what's going on with theirs, and then, like I asked Steve today, I said, how come they're getting $6.5 million back and we're only getting $1.5? So it's very confusing if you read the papers about what's going on, and I'm sure people are going to have a lot of questions in that area.
Okay. Well, we will endeavor to answer that. Nate?
What time would you like the board members to show up at the middle school?
The parade starts at 10:30, so we're hoping you guys could get there between 9:30 and 9:45, the latest.
We can park right there, I hear.
No, you can't. We'll kick you out, even if it is your school.
Right, because there's no signs.
That's
There's no signs, so. But, yes, you guys, please be there between 9:30 and 9:45, the latest. Make sure you wear your shirts. Be happy and smiling.
Because they get real upset if you're in the parade with no shirt
Are you giving
on.
out candy or anything?
Anybody, questions?
Probably, yes.
If you give out candy, please pass it out and hand it out. Don't throw it so the children don't run into the road.
Did you covered so many things. Did you talk about the middle school?
Yes, the movie media. That is for middle school age. That's one of our new events. That's Thursday night from 9 to 11.
In the cap? There.
I'm
In
sorry?
the cap of the middle school? Where is that?
No,
Common,
that'll be
isn't
on the
it?
Common unless it rains, and then it moves to the cafeteria.
And your forecast actually looks pretty good for the end of the week.
Yeah, your Londonderry AccuWeather forecast looks like Wednesday 84.
Well, I'm just
sunny,
hoping, I'm keeping
partly
my
cloudy
fingers crossed.
on Thursday. Friday, though, it looks like some scattered thunderstorms.
Chance of
and
precipitation.
And Saturday, partly scattered thunderstorms around as well, so
So-
hopefully.
So is Nancy really going to be the DJ?
No, not by myself.
Yes.
I
That
think
should
I'm
be
in
exciting.
disagreement with the chair.
So unless you have any more questions, I think I'm done.
Anybody? Questions? Okay, let me just say something as chair. I was not involved in the Old Home Day Committee this year, but as always, we in the district are very aware and very appreciative of all the incredible work that all the members, including the lead organizer, put into making this event work for all of Londonderry. It's really one of our benchmark, to use the wrong word, but I can't think of the right one. One of signature, right?
Signature.
Thank you. Events in Londonderry, and it happens because of so many volunteers and so many donations and so much excellent leadership. So, on behalf of the district, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I don't mean to shock you, but it's very hard for me to talk because today I've been Londonderry Old Home Day. I've never talked so much in my life. I'm going to enjoy not talking for the rest of the night.
Oh, you know why Reed's down here?
Oh, I don't know if I should announce that. Well, Reed got hurt.
Oh,
But he's doing well.
But we're hoping he's out by Friday, so he can be at the booth. The booth boy.
Reed Clark.
What happened to Reed?
I don't think she wants to disclose.
Well, he
that.
fell, so he's a little under the weather right now.
Well,
so-
we can put him in the golf cart, can't we?
Yes, that's what I said. He's the king. He can do whatever. So I'm sure that's why you haven't seen him at his, at the meeting tonight,
Okay.
so.
Well, we wish them the best.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.
Nancy, I think you had something under this category?
Yep, I do. And this is for you, Nate. The recent incidents at the YMCA here in Londonderry have certainly got me thinking about security in our buildings, and of course, you know, the YMCA provides after-school
Right.
services for our children in our facilities. So I'm just looking for some information from the Y about what their security and emergency procedures and practices are, particularly way after hours when the building is virtually empty. So if that's something that, you know, you can get for us, that would be great. If, you know, if you feel it's necessary that Lisa come in and speak with us, Lisa Fitzgerald, the director at the Londonderry Y, that would be terrific.
Okay.
I'm just looking for the level of training of their staff. You know, particularly since the children are housed in our building, I don't know if their staff needs to be trained in terms of what our policies and procedures are in terms of emergency procedures. So I just would like some information on that.
I think
Thank you.
there's a really interesting question about what happens if somebody in Army fatigue shows up at
Yeah.
at one of our school facilities to accost YMCA people. Who's responsible for that? What's our involvement? Things like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just so you
Yeah.
know, too, Lisa did call me, and we're making arrangements so that if they have to evacuate the Y, that there'll be
Yeah.
a school location for them to be able to go
Yeah,
to.
that
So,
makes sense.
because I think one of the issues they had was they weren't sure where they could evacuate a
Right.
large group of kids. So,
That was an issue.
yeah. So,
Okay, thank you.
And I know she's on top of that.
Yeah.
Anything else from the board? All right, one
Uh,
thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Jay, come on up.
I just wanted to follow up on a couple of questions Mr. LaFeria had regarding tracking our graduates at the collegiate level and the scholarships that went out for this year's class of 2011. I talked with Mike Dolphin a lot about this. Certainly he's to credit with the articulation agreements that he has helped establish for our school. And he and I and the guidance department are going to work together to, we certainly have all the schools that our graduates are attending. We're going to reach out to those schools each year at the end of our graduates' freshman year and through 4 years to get those numbers, and we'll be able to report that to the board. So we'll be working with guidance to establish that. And I've also had a few conversations with Howard Sobolov and Andy Susi in the realm of athletics and music to do the same thing. And they indicate in their research that we have 11 graduates playing a college sport and 5 are on scholarship for this year. Last year we had 9 student athletes sign national letters of intent, so they were under scholarship. And music, we have 2 full music scholarships, one to Berkeley and one to Manhattan. And Andy indicated that each year, on average, a dozen musicians play in marching bands when they go off to their schools, and that's more of a tryout than a scholarship offer. So that was something they thought was a positive route to take as far as tracking how our kids are doing at that level, and those are the approaches we're going to take.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the follow-up, and when you get all that compiled up, do you mind sending that out to us in printed form or email form?
Absolutely.
Just so we have it.
Yep.
But I definitely appreciate the follow-up. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
Jason, one of the things you kind of mentioned that's probably a lot harder, it's easy to look at letters of intent in sports, but I think the real value is how many of our athletes are playing sports in college. Didn't get any money or didn't do anything like that, but it's helped them to get into the school. In many cases, it helps them stay in the school because they have to do it. I think the community would be surprised the number of athletes that we have that are playing at the collegiate level, Division III, Division II.
As I say, Div 3, they don't get money, but they...
Even Division II, there's lots that don't get money,
Right.
but they play there. But, I mean, I think that's a number that we should be tracking also, because you say, wow, look at all the kids that play sports and only 5 are playing.
Right.
It gives a very bad impression.
Sure. Howard actually sent me a document and a breakdown by sport in the schools that our student athletes are attending and playing a sport there. So I can send that document onto the board
that'd be great.
to share, because, and that's over his tenure, not just, he indicated the graduates from the class of 2011. But, I mean, we have some, at football, just to give you an example, kids playing at UConn, Brown, WPI, field hockey, Stonehill, girls soccer, Miami, Michigan. I mean, so he has the breakdown of where these kids are going in some major schools and some small schools. And you're absolutely right, Ron, that a lot of these kids are able to reach to the next level because of the sport they played and get into school or participate because of their athletic ability or their music ability.
Jay, could I ask a favor?
Sure.
Could you put that together, let's say for the next school board meeting, we'll just put it in the board packet? That
Absolutely.
way everybody will get it and the press can get it too.
Yep.
All right?
Is it possible also, Jay, to get that as a percentage? I think percentages are big when you look at, let's say, you know, of the number of kids that play sports in this town over the course of a year, and we see how many kids that actually play at the college level and receive some types of monies. You know, is it 10%, is it 20%, is it 50%,
Sure, yeah.
something along those lines?
Howard will have a breakdown of the senior class and then who went on to play at the college level and scholarships. Sure,
Great,
we can get that
that's
information.
great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Nance? Steve? If I can add one thing here, I don't think this requires, I'm not asking for any research on this, but along the similar lines, having had 2 kids come out of Londonderry and go off into music programs, you mentioned scholarships to Berkeley. That's great. I mean, that's wonderful. But simply getting into music programs like Berkeley and even UNH and Keene require audition processes.
Correct.
That not everybody makes it through. And I think the placement, the ability of our kids to get into these programs and continue their studies in these areas is something that is highly well reflective, pardon the grammar, of the program in Londonderry. I mean, there's a running joke that I know Andy specifically mentioned marching bands. That's you know, I understand that. But there's a running joke that the music program at Keene is Londonderry West because of all the people who are out there. And I mean, you're from Keene too, so the same things can be said about music as are said about PE. Are sports. They're both excellent enablers of kids to pursue things after high school that they want to go into.
Sure. In a lot of cases, actually, and we followed the two students that obviously that received music scholarships. There were probably 8 to 10 that auditioned at music schools. So it was in some ways higher stakes because it was that one audition that either they made the cut or they did not make the cut to be accepted to that college.
Right.
Unlike athletes who, over a body of work and game films and recruiting, it's looked at a little bit differently as they follow it. So you're absolutely right.
Getting into Berkeley is no mean feat, or Manhattan for
Yes,
that matter.
correct. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, terrific.
Thanks, Jay.
One more thing, Nate, if we could,
But John, do you want to mention Pauline?
I'm sorry?
Pauline? Shed?
Oh, yeah. Thanks. While I'm finding the paper, one more thing we talked back in the beginning of the year about looking into blizzard bags and things like that. And we wanted to get an update on that sometime around September.
Yep.
Can we put that on a upcoming agenda?
Yep, Andy's aware of it, and he will be presenting a report to the board.
Okay, when should we expect that?
Beginning of September.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay, so one of the first meetings in September, we'll be hearing about it? Great.
yep.
Ron, are you able to wing that?
Okay, it's, again, it just shows you the depth of the teachers that we have in the district. This is a announcement letter that says, "It is with great pleasure that I inform you that art teacher Pauline Pichette of Matthew Thornton School has been selected as the Art Educator of the Year for 2011-2012 by the New Hampshire Art Educators Association. She will be representing the state of New Hampshire's Outstanding Art Educator of the Year by the National Art Education Association in March of 2012. Pauline's contribution to her students, school, and community impressed the awards committee. Pauline will be formally recognized at the fall conference on Saturday, October 15, 2011, at the New Hampshire Institute of Art in Manchester. Congratulations to Pauline for such a wonderful award. Excellent.
Pauline, next time you come to a meeting, we'll have the flowers ready. All right, on the
Before you
consent,
go to, Peter, can
not
you
on
make...
the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, can you just make an announcement about the spraying in the fields being closed this weekend? What's happening there?
I believe on the Londonderry.org webpage is a schedule of the areas that are being sprayed throughout the town. Obviously, the main areas will be the common area, the high school, and the middle school, and the Matthew Thornton fields. They are also doing, they're also going to hit North School and South School and West Road. I believe they are hitting the central part of town every night except, I think it's a Wednesday night.
No, they are doing it tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they hit north, not hit north and south. They're not doing north or south Tuesday and Thursday night.
Okay. Just so everyone's aware of it, because I've gotten several questions about if the fields are available or not available.
And we did post that if they're spraying in the area, that evening, the fields are closed. No, and everybody must be off the fields by 5 o'clock.
Can we just take it one step farther? We only have a few people that we've allocated the fields to, the Wildcats, soccer, and those people. Have they been notified by
Yes,
email?
they have, both myself and Art Salidas, the rec director.
Okay.
Yep.
I believe the Wildcats are going over to Derry and
Right.
yours during that time.
To my knowledge, everyone's made arrangements during the nights that they're spraying where they would normally practice.
Excellent, thank you.
John, if you want me to read these off.
Sure.
The town common was sprayed on Saturday and Sunday. There was no spraying on Monday because of weather, and all of these dates and these times and places are weather dependent. It's to the discretion of the licensed applicator on whether or not they spray. But they presently have scheduled tonight for the town common, Matthew Thornton School, the middle school, and the high school. And on Wednesday, they'll be spraying Matthew Thornton, the middle school, the high school, Moose Hill, North School, South School, the Nelson Road fields, and the West Road fields. On Thursday, they'll be spraying Matthew Thornton, the middle school, the high school, and that is always done in the evenings, and you should avoid the area during spraying and following the application.
And the question is, how does that affect Old Home Day?
Yep, thanks for repeating that. The reason that the town common was sprayed on the days that it was is for the events that will occur on the common, it will be safe for those events. The only exception is that the turtle likes to eat the grass, so they'll be making accommodations for that because nobody's quite sure if the turtle would have an issue with it, and everybody loves the turtle. So the turtle's going to be on a cart.
Can we displace the turtle for a few days?
They said they were going to bring more snakes, but then there were some people that had problems with that. So,
Well, I might be one of them.
the turtle will be there on Thursday night for kids' night, and but the last spray at the common occurs tonight. and the bug should stay dead for that time period. And of course, the reason this was done is that the West Nile virus was found in Manchester in one of the test pools, so that's why they're doing this spray. And I've always said everybody should take care of themselves and cover up, particularly in the evening, and use a spray with DEET in it. So make sure you apply it to your children. Don't let your kids apply it to themselves.
And this is all clearly for mosquito control. All right, anything else on the questions, comments, announcements? Anyone? Going once, going twice, let's go on. All right, on the consent agenda, go ahead.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'd like to note with sadness the resignations of Janice Cardwell, Ann Fitzpatrick, Cheryl Irvin, Patricia Carbone, and Deb Finn from various different positions in the district. Thank you very much for your service, and we will miss you going forward. Upcoming meetings, next Monday and Wednesday are the building tours. It's an annual requirement in state law, actually, that the school board inspect all the buildings before school opens. So Monday night we will be meeting here and then proceeding to Matthew Thornton at 6 o'clock, Moose Hill at 6:45, South School at 7:30. Anybody who would like to join us, Budget Committee specifically, and anybody else who's interested is welcome to come along. And on Wednesday, we start at North School, 6 p.m., Middle School, 6:45, High School, 7:30, and District Office at 8:10. We also have the deliberative session on August 23rd. That's next Tuesday, a week from tonight, 7 p.m., at the high school gym.
Cafeteria.
High school cafeteria, right. I was looking to see, Nate, this seems like a good time to recap why we're doing that. I think people probably know to exhaustion, but one more time through it couldn't hurt if you could handle that.
I'm sorry.
The need for a deliberative session and what we're looking to do.
Yes, we're looking to take more money from people.
Right.
Basically, the reason for it is that the state did not meet their commitment on retirement, which is creating, based on our best estimate, a $700,000 to $900,000 hole on our appropriation side. We are receiving $1.1 million in additional adequacy. $1.2 million rather. What we're asking the voters to do is appropriate an additional $1.1 million, which will not increase their taxes because it's a shift of the additional adequacy money to allow us to backfill the hole created by the state not picking up their 35% on retirement, which will then enable us to run the programs and services that people voted on in March. This is not putting back any programs or services that were reduced or eliminated prior to the March election. These are the positions, programs, and services that we froze as a result of the retirement issue and the state not funding it. So basically, the state took money away on one side. They gave us money on the revenue side in order for us to be able to fill that appropriations hole. We are going to be asking the voters to increase our appropriation, which will allow us, in essence, to move the additional revenue over.
Now, why should people show up for this if there's a 500-person quorum in effect?
Well, as you well know, there is no longer a 500-person quorum. At deliberative session, people can amend the board's article up or down. It can go down to 0, or it can be increased, or it can be decreased by any amount, and it just requires, excuse me, a simple majority vote. So if there are 25 people that show up and 13 people want to increase the $1.1 million recommendation, and that passes, that's the amount that will show up on the ballot when it's voted on October 11th. If 25 people show up and 13 people decide they want to zero it out or reduce it, that's the number that will show up on the ballot.
So we are urging people, no matter which side they come down on the issue, to show up and make
Right.
their opinions known.
Right. And, people have to keep in mind that the deliberative session on the 23rd, any action taken there is what will show up on the ballot on October 11th, and that's what people will vote on. What also I think people should understand is it's only that warrant article that will be voted on. It will not be the approved appropriation number that people voted on in March. So the only thing that can be affected is this particular warrant article. People can't reduce the entire budget. All they can do is act on this warrant article.
And this is this number, yes or no? There's no default, there's no fallback position.
That is correct. But people can say, well, instead of 1.1, we would like to increase it to 1.5. Or they could say, instead of 1.1, we'd like it to be $1 or 0. And if they get a majority vote, that's what would appear on the ballot.
So what are the impacts if it goes either way?
Well, if we get the 1.1, then we will be able to restore all the programs and services that we had in place when the community approved the budget in March. That included all the extracurricular and co-curricular activities, the teaching positions, the support positions, school bus, guidance counselor, all the positions. I think there were a total of 17 positions, if I remember, 17, 18 positions. Plus the programs and services, which were middle school athletics, middle school extracurricular activities, elementary extracurricular activities, freshman sports, were all part of the reduction. A bus was part of the reduction. Guidance counselor was part of the reduction. Not reduction, freezes. We get our 1.1, that will enable us to put that back. Also, to cover the increased cost for vocational tuition and transportation, because the state reduced the amount of the support they're giving us on vocational tuition and transportation. That's to about $90,000, which is also included. We get less money than that, then we would have to reduce programs and services that we had anticipated providing to the students. Not to confuse matters, but I think it's important for people to know, and we had discussed this in public, we are using teacher turnover money, and we have frozen $200,000, actually $300,000 worth of expenditures in this year's budget, so we could put some teachers in elementary classrooms, because it didn't, on the assumption that people will go ahead and approve this warrant article, because I can't reconfigure elementary classrooms on October 11th one way or the other. If the vote doesn't go through, then obviously the $200,000 that we froze in the budget is not going to get spent. We'll have to use that for personnel. But I felt that it was necessary for us to prioritize that and get the year off to a start. We also used some of that money to fund at least the first semester's worth of some of the extracurricular and co-curricular activities. We don't get the money, then the second semesters are just off the board. And again, that would have an impact on other parts of the budget, supplies, equipment, because what we're trying to do is, in a sense, forward fund that to allow us to start the year off, because the vote is October 11th, basically a month and a half after we start the school year. So we've taken a calculated risk on one that we think is justified and is educationally defensible, so that we could get the year off to a good start with the hope that we would get that money. If the vote doesn't go through, the $300,000 in teacher turnover money, which we generally use to cover ourselves for overages on substitute account, will mean that if we can't replace that money, then we potentially have a problem as we go through the year as far as substitutes are concerned, and that means that we've got to freeze other accounts too, because I've got to have people in the classrooms. We did put programs and programs in place and take actions last year that reduced the overage on the substitute account, and we're going to continue to do that. But everything impacts one thing after another. So what we try to do is prioritize things for the start of the school year that put people in classrooms and allowed students to participate in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. If there's a no vote, then the second semester that stuff goes away, plus there's supplies and materials that will not get bought, and so on, all the items that we discussed. It's a significant issue for us. We're not alone in this situation. And everything will not really shake out as far as financing from the state is concerned till about January, because they're not going to really know what the net impact of the 2% increase in employee contributions is going to generate. So to some degree, this is, in a sense, an insurance policy for us that is going to allow us to maintain our programs or to run the programs and services that we told everybody we were going to run in March and that what people approved. Otherwise, there simply is going to be a cutback because the money isn't there. It's that simple.
Steve?
Let's take a time machine back to February, and the board held a deliberative session.
Yes.
And our position was to eliminate 87 and a half people.
Correct.
Is the other half healing?
I always had a problem with half a person. I was going to say 87 because I knew somebody would say something smart about that. Well, all right, so we'll say just over 87 people.
That's one tall person. That number
87
was
yeah.
a tall guy.
So this session that we're going into does not put back any of those individuals, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
In February, the budget that we presented to the voters, how did that compare to the previous year's budget?
It was below our previous year's budget by $303,000.
Okay, so not looking at the default budget, the budget for the previous year was $303,000 more.
That's correct.
So we actually the board presented in February deliberative session. Now, what happened is 3 days after the February deliberative session, the governor made a speech where he indicated he would make a change to the retirement program.
Correct.
And then that was finally went through, as Al Baldessaro would say, the sausage process. And as we would say, the requirement to pay the retirement was downshifted to us.
Correct.
And that came in the form of a decision on the House's budget at the end of June, and the governor signed that.
Correct.
So when that was signed, they knew that this retirement was an issue. So they put into place the ability for us to hold a special meeting without going to the courts. Normally we would have to go to the courts.
That's correct.
So now we're going to hold a new deliberative session, not making any changes to our March vote. And I think that that's really the important thing here is the position of the board is we're going to reaffirm the budget that the voters already approved in March. It's just that we have to move these funds from one location, the school adequacy money, to the retirement funding, and we have no other vehicle to do this.
That's absolutely correct.
Other than to go to this meeting and then go to the polls. So I guess what I would plead, I find it interesting that this could be motion to go to $0 at the deliberative session. If there are, the majority of people that come to the deliberative session and believe that this should be at $0, we would be short in our budget that we had planned on back in March, and what the voters approved by over $1 million.
That's correct.
So, and then the other most interesting thing is when we go to the polls in October, if we had to vote on $0, the question would be, do you support an increase of $0, yes or no?
Let me ask a question. Could you cancel the election?
I think you can.
You probably could,
If it
to save the
becomes
money
zero,
on the
it
vote.
becomes-
If
Yeah.
it's zero,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Because
you can't amend it up.
if
or
you vote
can't-
yes for 0 or no for 0,
Yeah,
I think that's still 0.
Yeah, we'll double check with our attorney, but if somebody says 0, then why go through, I mean, if that's what comes out of deliberative session,
So,
why spend the money on an election? Zero.
So I guess I'm trying not to do politicking, but I would ask that the citizens that come to the deliberative session not consider a 0, that they consider putting us at where we were in March on what they already approved. I'd also like to plead to the citizens to not go higher, because I don't think that that's the right thing to do for the taxpayer. We've already determined that we can run the district on the funds that they approved in March. So to me, the fiscally prudent and what will work for the students in the district, and that's important, because not only for the students, it also keeps our home values where they need to be, would be, let us get what we were planning on in March.
Right, and just to add on to Steve, we're not, the additional adequacy is 1.2, we're asking for 1.1 shift, which means there's additional $100,000 in revenue, which in essence would reduce what the anticipated tax rate was voted on by 3 cents. So if, just to pick just as an example, if the tax rate was gonna be $1, with this action, you would reduce the tax rate to 97 cents, just as a simple example. So we're not asking for all the adequacy money.
Go ahead.
And the only other thing is that since we don't know what the revenue is going to be from the 2%,
Right.
the board has verbally said any monies that come in there will be returned back to the taxpayers. So there's no moving money around here. If you really look at it, it's a simple balance sheet. The state had the upper part, they had the money, that 35% of Londonderry's money for retirement that they would transfer over to the retirement fund. If you look at that line is 0 over there. We have the money down in our budget now, which we didn't have before. That money is now going to be transferred over to the retirement fund by us. And the bottom line, when you add up those two things, between March and September is equal. I mean, it's just an accounting situation that we have, and there's nothing else we can do about it but go to a deliberative session.
Okay, Nancy, John, anything? One question I'd like to just put out, this has been an informative question and answer. Would there be any benefit in capturing some of it on paper and having it available at our booth on Old Home Day? That's to everybody. I guess not. Okay.
We have, what we can do is,
We put the paper up at the fried dough booth.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, I'm only gonna go to your booth to hear
we
the answer.
what we
She's going to
have,
spin the hits.
what we have is, we can print up some of the material that we had for the public hearing.
Nate, if you're going to hand anything out, a single sheet of paper, anything else is just going to be thrown away, just a single sheet of paper. If we're going to print anything out, it should be really simple. Explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, here's the accounting on it. Thank you very much.
Here's where to be.
Yeah, I mean,
Half a sheet with a couple bullets on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I'd be all right with that.
I'm just thinking, because too much paper, no one's going to read it.
Okay. We'll see what we can put together for you.
Let me know if you want any backstopping on that. Okay, anything else on the consent agenda? If not, we have a motion by Ron and a second by Steve. All in favor of accepting the...
Actually,
It was Nancy.
Nancy, sorry. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 5-0. On to committee reports. Our incredibly conscientious student council representative, CAFA, was unable to be here tonight, but she did send her report in written form. Mary, do you have that in front of you? No. Okay. Let me read this into the record then. This is from CAFA. At Londonderry High School, workers are finishing cleaning up the school, rearranging some teachers' rooms, and fixing up the equipment before school starts. Over the past couple of weeks, the Londonderry High School Marching Band and Color Guard have held a few more Thursday night practices. Beginning yesterday, the Lancers have begun their annual 4-day band camp. The first 2 days of band camp have been very successful with a lot of work being done, but they have also been a little wet and cold. Even so, the Lancers will have their halftime show for the 2011 football season finished on Thursday, August 18th. Parents, friends, and anyone else are welcome to join the band on Thursday afternoon for the first performance of the halftime show. The LHS Band and Color Guard will also be marching in the annual Old Home Days Parade in Londonderry on Saturday, August 20th. LHS Drumline will be performing at the Town Common on Old Home Day Saturday at 2 p.m. The Lancers will also be marching in the annual Allenstown Old Home Day Parade on Saturday, August 27th. Many sports teams have begun practicing for the fall season. Some of these teams are the football teams, the boys and girls cross-country teams, the soccer teams, the field hockey teams, and the volleyball teams. Finally, the first day of school at Londonderry High School will be Monday, August 29th, 2011. Thank you for that, CAFA. Let's see, reports from board members, liaison reports. Nancy, anything? John? Ron?
No.
Steve? And nothing from the Talking Furniture. All right, that's it for committee reports. On to deliberations.
Before we move on, I do have just one other question. I don't know if this is the time or the place for this, but I just want to know if there's any new information available on building maintenance. School starts in 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, what?
Building maintenance. I just wanted to know how we're...
Sprinklers, roofs.
Yeah, sprinklers, roofs.
We've got some things going on.
Oh, when we go on the building
Yeah.
tours, we'll give you an update of everything, so we're in good shape.
Are we, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, the sprinklers
are
are,
done, they've been inspected, and,
okay, so no delays.
No.
Good.
no,
Okay.
One item under deliberation that I'd like to add on the fly. You saw an email from the town council. We've been asked to appoint a representative to the dispatch committee. This is a committee looking at, I presume, the question of whether to outsource Londonderry Police and Fire Dispatch to Derry, as was discussed earlier in the year. Steve?
Yeah, or to consolidate it with the local police department, or to, to create a dispatch center for the region, or to keep it as it is. I don't think it's, or to relocate it to Derry, yeah.
Okay. We have been asked to provide a representative to that. Is anybody interested in that job? Ron, Steve, anybody?
I'm just worried because my term is, I'm sure this will go on beyond the elections.
Would you like to take it from now until then, and we'll...
Nobody else is jumping up, I can, but that's the only.
What's the requirement?
I am not sure. Did you see any requirement in terms of time commitment in that message? Neither did I. Okay.
Just think it makes sense that, you've been in.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I just,
Just bring it to closure quickly.
Yeah, wrap it up. Nate?
also to item here, we should get the name of someone who's gonna make a motion
Right.
and second at deliberative session. And I would assume that the board, I guess the board would like me to do the presentation.
I think the chair and vice chair should.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I agree with Nate doing the presentation. Any discussion on that? All right, if nobody objects, I'll make the motion and you can second it.
That's right.
And I assume, looking at Todd Jonkus of the Budget Committee, I assume you'll have a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Answer was affirmative. All right,
So you'll be presenting. But they have to do
Yeah.
the script.
Yes.
okay. Anything else on deliberations?
I make a motion that we accept the temporary administrative assignments as stated in policy CI.
Second.
We have to accept that.
Okay, I was actually hoping to move that forward to the next meeting. I want to discuss a couple of things regarding that.
Okay, why don't we discuss it now? Okay,
Okay, so can we withdraw that motion, please?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Is that okay with you, Ken? Good, thanks. All right, we'll bring that up the next time. Superintendent's report, and we're almost on time. Mr. Corey.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm here to present some of our testing data regarding the kneecap testing that we take each fall, the Iowa testing that we take during the spring, and then I'm going to conclude with a brief video. I'm happy to report to the board that, once again, our kneecap scores in both reading and math were very strong. We have taken a number of steps over the last few years to address some of the issues, and we still have some work to do. As I had spoken to the board a while back and to the C3 committee, this summer one of our major focuses was mathematics, and we'll be coming back to C3 at our first meeting in September, and then following that up with a board presentation on the work that they have completed. In the area of reading on kneecaps, again, for those viewers out there, the kneecap is a snapshot in time that takes place approximately 6 weeks into the school year. It is the shortest window you could probably have to take kneecaps is 2.5 full days. The testing blocks are 90 minutes a session, and it's a very time-consuming task for our children. Under the reading, we come into 3 main categories. One is determine the whole school, and if they make adequate yearly progress, economically disadvantaged, and educationally disability students. Other districts have different criteria, and it depends on how many students you have in a particular grouping. Under the whole school index, all our schools made AYP in reading. We have some tremendous scores, 92, 91, 92, 92, and 94. That's based on an index of 100 points. And basically, it's calculated by taking all the students. They assign a point value for wherever they may score, from proficient with distinction down to substantially below proficient, and use a divisor of the number of students. Again, under the economically disadvantaged, we did very well, again, making AYP via what is known as the confidence index. And that's just a statistical mechanism. If you're in a percent of what is required of the index, you are then qualify under the confidence index. So those scores, again, at the high school were 83, the middle school was 88, our elementaries, North was 90, South was 87, and Matthew Thornton was 89. Those students who are receiving free and reduced lunch as a qualification for being put in that category, and those students are also eligible for extra services after the school day in terms of tutoring and things that come into place. That was a category that last year we struggled on, and that we have worked hard and made some significant gains. Where we have continued to look at various ways to address our scores is under our educational disability. As you can see from our scores, they are solid scores into the 70s with their index. But for us to make AYP in that category, there are one of 3 ways. You either have to reach the whole school index, which those scores do not. They have to be a 10% gain over last year's score, or they have to be within the confidence index. The far right column shows you that we've had gains and losses. And again, one of the difficulties that we find with kneecaps from looking at it from an assessment tool to drive curriculum is that you're looking at 2 different groups of children. So when we say we have a gain or loss, we're comparing last year's students to this year's students. So the dynamics, the percentage of special ed children in that grade could be different. The percentage of economically disadvantaged students could be different. I will tell you one trend that we noticed because of the economy, our economically disadvantaged students, the number went up because our number of students who were qualified for free or reduced lunch went up because of the difficulty in the economy. So we had more kids in those categories. In the area of math, as I informed the board, this is an area where we're really putting some attention into our curriculum. We started with a K-5 committee of 15 representatives, 3 from each grade level from across the district. We are looking at our scope and sequence. We are looking at how we assess our students and how we track that data on the info site. As I said, we will be coming back to the board shortly. I can tell the board that I've been extremely impressed. The work this committee has completed over a short period of about 2.5 months is very well done. We will continue it during the school year and as well as follow up next year, and really hope to be finished with this work in about another 10-month period. But it's gone very well. In terms of, again, we have the 3 categories of the whole school index, the economically disadvantaged, and the educational disabilities. Again, we do very well under the whole school index, and we do very well under the economically disadvantaged. We did not make AYP at the middle school this year for the whole school, and we have put in a number of pieces, which we actually did last year. And one of the frustrating pieces is, if we went back a whole budget cycle, the board supported adding a math teacher at the middle school to service our special ed children, as well as creating a learning lab. Well, when you go into the school year and you have 6 weeks to implement those, they don't make a significant difference on the testing. We hope to see that expense and resources that we put into the middle school paying dividends when we go into the testing this year. NECAP, just for the board's education, will be moving in 2 years to a spring test, because one of the great difficulties has been you take a test in October, you don't get results back into March, April. You make plans that you're going to implement the following school year, but 6 weeks into that year, those children are taking a test. So the state has really reviewed their cycle and agreed that they need to look at offering that testing as a spring test so that we would be able to implement these plans and follow the growth of those children as we go.
Andy, aren't they going to be changing the assessment instrument too?
Yes, the state is also looking at an online testing mechanism, which would be similar to many other district uses what is called the NEWA testing, which is more of a gauge of how that child is performing based against themselves rather than their peers. So you get in my humble opinion, if they go in the direction that they are planning to, I think you'll be able to better track the students' progress over the time. And as we go into the Iowa testing, which I'll do in a couple minutes, I think the difference and the reason why we support Iowa so much is because it tracks our students over time, which is the more critical factor when looking at the curriculum. In terms of the, if you'd go to the next one, Sean. I also wanted to share with the board just what's going on with AYP out there. And I have the state release data from 2011, 2010. As you can see, more schools are becoming schools considered in need of improvement and districts in need of improvement. A district in need of improvement is a district that has failed to meet a particular area of study for 2 consecutive years. In our case, that would be the special education reading and the special education math. And the state and the federal No Child Left Behind law believes that the index for a non-handicapped student should be identical to their handicapped peer. And that's why when you see some of the growth, and I can highlight an example that we saw this year. North School had a tremendous year in mathematics with their special ed population. They grew over 10%, so they made their AYP index in special education math. Their index score happens to be below their counterparts at Matthew Thornton and South. But North is the only one to make AYP. because of the 10% growth. So when you look around and read the different articles in the paper about some school districts making AYP and some not, remember it's a comparison of your own children versus their peers in the district. It's not based on a number when you're looking at the economically disadvantaged or the special ed population. So for North to become a school that would be no longer in need of improvement for math, they would need to make another 10% growth in special ed math next year. So the requirements and the expectations are significant. I believe that we should have growth over time, and we do track the gains and the losses because that growth over time is very, very important. And I think, again, when we get to the IO, we'll see that. There are presently 104 districts that are districts in need of improvement. That is up from 100 districts last year. There are 54 districts that made AYP in reading, math, or both. And there are 24 new districts in need of improvement. So as we continue to see, the index will again go up next year. We'll be looking at an index right around 94 in reading, and it will, I believe, for the first time be at 90 in mathematics. So the bar continues to go up no matter what the student performance is. And I believe in the reading and the math, we will continue to make very solid progress as a whole school. And where we're spending our efforts is really drilling it down in the data on those subgroups and how do we offer the services that they need. John, if you could click to the comparison by schools, we presently have 307 schools in New Hampshire that are considered schools in need of improvement. That's up from 46 schools a year ago. 327 schools did not make AYP in reading, math, or both. 131 schools made AYP in reading and math. One of the other pieces in the testing is each of the subgroup has to have a minimum number to qualify for a cell. And I'll give you an example in Londonderry. We have one of our elementary schools at one grade level does not have enough special ed students in it to meet that cell. So you are not recorded. That is not held against you. So a lot of those 131 schools are a lot of our smaller rural schools in the North Country who don't meet the requirements. Some of their buildings struggle to have the population needed to meet those requirements. So when you look around at schools similar to us in size and demographics, we are all basically right there or approaching it very quickly. And I think you'll see almost, that percentage going up another 10 or 15% when that index goes up. If you would. I wanted to bring the board back to the data that Jason presented a few weeks back, because the idea behind No Child Left Behind was to really lower dropouts and increase kids going to college. And we had one student that did not graduate. We had 87.9% of our students go to 2- and 4-year colleges. We had 3.3% go to other programs, and when I say other programs, those are some of the vocational components that we offer that would be certificate programs or culinary, a number of worthy things, and we had 1.6% of our students go on to the military. So I believe Londonderry is fulfilling the intent of No Child Left Behind. Are we content to sit here with our scores? No. I can tell you that our principals this summer have spent time developing their schools in need of improvement plans, which will be posted on the websites before school starts. We as a district have offered professional development. We had Penny Kittle, actually she's coming in this week. Penny is a nationally known presenter who happens to live in New Hampshire and was willing to come over at what I'll call a discounted rate for us. And she'll be talking to middle school and high school English teachers about how to work with those struggling students. What can we do in the areas of reading? We had 54 teachers, special ed and regular ed teachers, participate in a 2-day co-teaching workshop, which was very well received. We have gone to that model in many of our language arts and math classes, where the special ed teacher and the regular ed teacher partner to deliver the service, with the special ed teacher providing those, the expertise on the different learning styles, the classroom teacher providing the content specialty, and when it truly becomes a partnership, it's at times difficult to realize who is the lead instructor because there is not one. And that was very well received. As I said, the math committee has been doing some outstanding work, and I'm excited to bring that to you. As I did note with the board, we're looking to gain greater mastery. One of the pieces out there, all the research is pointing to an elementary student who has their firm grasp of their basic computation facts will be much more successful at the middle school and high school level. So we have put some things in place that I will be bringing back to you. Also, we can't forget the outstanding PLC work that's been going on since last summer. We had our core team in. They spent 2 days working on formative and summative assessments and really drilling down on what we're calling the essential standard that a child has to learn. And lastly, we have a gap between our regular ed index score and our special education index score. That is one of the areas where the state of New Hampshire does assist you with. They have a process called focus monitoring that we spoke about at the Special Education Committee. They come in and they do two things. One, first of all, they check for compliance. You know, are you writing your IEPs? Are they written correctly? All of those pieces. But what they have done in expanding their role working with Ceresc is they come in and they work with the leadership team and an achievement team. And for 18 months, they work with you on your data, your instructional strategies. You know, have you thought of this? Have you attempted doing this? What are you doing as a district to look at this gap? I can tell you we've been to 2 meetings. The consultants working with us have been very impressed by the amount of data, by our info site, by the way we track our students. And they're kind of excited to come in and really work with us because in some of the discussions already, they realize that we're beyond worrying about whose responsibility it is. We're here for the kids. If you can give us a strategy or give us something that will help these students, we will absolutely be looking to bring that back to our board for approval. That will be taking place, as I said, over the next 18 months. That requires us to finish with a plan. The intent is to then take that plan and incorporate it into our strategic plan. And with the mention of the strategic plan, everything that is in our district in need of improvement plan, that is in our school in need of improvement plan, that has gone through C3, technology, all of those areas that we focus on as a district will be in the newest release of the strategic plan, which you should be receiving in your books or disc, whichever your request was at end of August meeting. So all of that information will be there. At this point, what I wanted to do was ask if there were any questions on the kneecap before I move over to the Iowas. Go ahead, ma'am.
It's not specifically on the kneecaps, but I have several. I want to talk about economically disadvantaged students. I want to know who and how that's determined.
It strictly works off your free and reduced lunch. Just so you know, if a principal were ever to see in a building that a child is not eating or something like that, they automatically can make that referral and that child can become part of that program.
And then you indicated that our economically disadvantaged students are eligible for after-school services?
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to know who offers and/or provides those services. Are those our regularly contracted teachers?
No. Under the Title I law,
Yep.
the service providers go through the State Department of Ed for approval.
Yep.
They are then listed on a website.
Mm-hmm.
When we send out our notification to parents to see if they're interested, they can select any of the vendors that are on that website.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that for the Londonderry folks, the 3 major ones, Sylvan Learning in Bedford,
Yep.
Oxford Learning in Londonderry,
Yep.
and then some of our parents will also utilize either in-home or library tutoring, which is a lot of times is an independent person that's been approved by the DOE. If they choose an independent person to deliver one-on-one services, they pay a higher rate. The dollar amount that we're allocated for our supplemental education services, which is SES, is divided by the number of students eligible, and that gives you your per diem for the year. So that gets you a number of sessions. Once we do that, the assistant principals working with me send out the information, and parents are encouraged to apply. If they apply, we set up the contract with the independent services, and then we're kind of out of the picture. The service does provide us data. They do provide us information for RTI. Both those agencies I spoke of have been wonderful to work with.
Now, I have to assume, I think, that part of this would also be determined by their academic requirements?
We established a priority so that if a child was doing extremely well and there was a child who had also applied that was struggling, we have the criteria set up so that it's the neediest child first. But if I had, let's use just North School for example. Let's say I had 25 slots. If I get 10 students who sign up, and they're all eligible, those 10 students, no matter how they score academically, are eligible.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. So then this brings me to my next question. Are these same types of services at all available for students who are not economically disadvantaged?
Last year they were not, but if on the voting, if the money was restored, what I had requested from the board with the summer school money that we didn't expend because we did not have summer school, is we would like to set up the same services for those
After
students
school.
after school, utilizing our own teachers at their contracted rate, which
Yeah.
is in some cases less than what we are paying out servicing, so that all students would be able to participate. And that would be something I would really want to track the data on to this, because summer school, what I get concerned about is a child comes to summer school for 4 weeks and then the follow-through, or that the child came to summer school and the skill they needed, they've forgotten it. What I'd like to see is when we identify a particular need for a student, we can deliver that service that same week.
Right. Well, I will look forward to that, because I'll tell you what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about students who don't necessarily fall into this category
Correct.
that need help.
Correct. Right.
And where do they go after
Right.
school?
Correct. And the other thing is Title I funds, again, they continue to fluctuate from what
Yep.
is allocated. They have gone down, probably in a 3-year period of about $75,000. And the requirements that we have to set aside for these supplemental education services are getting to the point where basically this year, when we did everything, we came out to be 0. Next year, there'd be the potential that the general fund would have to start picking up some of the teachers' salaries, because I have no choice but to allocate these dollars to supplemental education services.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other?
Go back to kneecap.
Sure.
What I'm seeing is that it appears that mathematically, eventually, no one makes AYP except for small schools that don't qualify to be held accountable in the program. And although that sounds silly, it is correct, isn't it?
The intent of the law is in 2014, all schools, all students will be at 100% proficient. And 100% proficient would mean everybody's making AYP. And I think it's presently being in discussion in Washington to be rewritten, because I don't think that was the intent.
Okay, but you just said the intent of the law by 2014 is to have all schools 100% proficient.
That was the intent of
What
the
I
law.
read when you said that was
by 2014, all schools will fail.
Correct. I mean, statistically, it can't, I mean,
Right.
it just doesn't work.
Okay, if that wasn't strange enough, again, a reminder, I'm not an educator or, you know, my background's engineering and business. The test is given 6 weeks after the students get into school. If I were to test a new employee 6 weeks after they started working on a project with me, they would likely fail. So why did they decide, and I probably should ask this 8 years ago, why did NECAP decide that the best time to test would be 6 weeks after the kids get into school? Why wouldn't they say, let's wait till they learn something?
I'm not exactly sure what the rationale was behind it, but I can tell you in hindsight, it is one of the reasons I think we will see it become a spring test.
Did we not have a spring test when it first started?
Yes,
Yes.
And they moved it around?
Yes.
yes.
All I can think of, it's easier to do the work during the school year as opposed to the summer.
As a matter of fact, I remember they did move it up, and that caused other problems.
Right.
In comparing the numbers, because then the numbers that we compared became
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
Because of that move.
Right. And we also, just for the board's knowledge, we take science in the spring. So science, we test, you know, if you think about the testing, if you spread it out to the best so the child can do their best, you're looking at a week. So you have a week of testing there, you have at least 2 days of testing in the spring, plus our own Iowa testing, which I think has great value. But when you start to look at the number of days we're testing versus instruction, that becomes a concern, because remember, these tests are not, you know, the math test you're taking, the English test you're taking, so it's really that balancing act between the number of times you're being assessed, both state and local, and the number of days you're receiving instruction.
So as long as it's summer stock and nobody's watching. Another silly question. Who are these NECAP people? Like, is it like 5 of them sitting somewhere? I assume they're in New England.
It's made up of three.
We don't have any board members or anything with them, right?
No. It's made up of the 3 states. The test was put together by companies similar to what we're looking at right now. There are right now 2 new groups that are designing the next round of testing when we evolve to wherever we're going. I mean, one of the frustrations for a school district is we know we're changing a test. We have been informed that we're actually changing the test as we're giving this test. And yet we still want to make comparisons from test to test. So the test that I took this year may not be the same as the test you're going to take next year, but yet we're still going to use that result for a district in need of improvement and school in need of improvement.
Is that going to increase the number of test days?
I don't think they're going to increase the number of test days, but they are hoping to make it online, and I don't know if they've really done enough working with districts to find out who has the infrastructure to make this happen. To give you an example, we did pilot the science test online for certain students, a small group, we were asked to pilot it. It didn't work because the problem was the firewalls had to come down at the exact same time, but that communication didn't occur because the testing people didn't talk to the IT people, and it wasn't at the local level.
It was a one-word test. Can you fix this?
Yeah. So our IT people had spent countless man-hours preparing for this, all ready to go, and then we had this group of students who couldn't complete it, and then we had to take them to the pencil and paper test. So I can tell you they weren't that enthused to now be doing that. And that is one other problem you run into when you basically, I think in grades 7, 8, and 11, if I told you, having 3 sons in those grades, if I told my 3 sons they had a test they were going to take that didn't mean anything, that didn't count for anything, and was going to have no impact on you educationally, I can tell you that in my own household, we've brought home some scores that don't measure their academic ability. And it's frustrating for me as an educator when I have that discussion and the response is, well, it doesn't matter, Dad.
Yeah.
But yet we use it to judge professionals and districts and schools.
You know, we've been talking about how these tests are, I don't think silly is too strong a word, and what's measured vis-a-vis the intent of what's supposed to be measured, and the outcomes that come of it. I mean, calling Londonderry, and was it 65% of the districts not in the state not making AYP, and more than half currently in need of improvement. So I guess the question that comes to my mind is, at what point do we simply say, this is stupid, let's stop doing it? I mean, I know there are federal regulations and things like that, but not every federal regulation is smart, and things that distract from our goal of educating children by consuming all these days of classroom time for tests that are patently silly.
Call your representative.
It just seems to me that at some point we have to either decide that these tests are meaningful to us, and we have to start moving beyond statements that they're not, and find who's responsible for us being categorized in need of improvement, or we have to say, this is meaningless, let's stop playing the game.
Well, this is all part of No Child Left Behind, right?
Correct, and it's all up for reauthorization. I think as much as I understand and comprehend all the struggles that the board has mentioned, I do think our principals, our teachers and that are able to take a lot of data away that we use to become better as a district.
Do we need both tests to get that data, or would one of them do it?
I think at some point that will come into the discussion at the state level about what tests we're using and when. But at the same time, as we go into the Iowas, I think what I like about it is the tracking over time. And so what I did for the board was I tracked the 5th grade, the 8th grade, and the 9th grade. The reason I did that is the 5th grade was the end of elementary, the 8th grade to end the middle school career, and the 9th grade because it's the last time we give the Iowa test. I switched to this from last year because last year we used to just give you the national percentiles, and there were a lot of people that just stared at me, and I realized I needed to present it in a way that a parent would understand it, and that anybody would understand it. So we switched to this, what I'll call longitudinal data, and we have found it very helpful. And there's a few different ways to look at it. We can look at it, the grade equivalent, which is what I'm showing tonight, because it's the easiest to understand. There's also a scaled score, which gives me a specific number for a year's growth over a year's time, which we calculate. And it also allows me to break it down by our special ed students as well. So if there's any piece of data after we're done that the board would like to see a month from now or 2 months from now, we have basically everything, and I'd be happy to do that. But Sean, if you could jump into the 5th grade
Actually,
Iowa.
just 1 second, Andy. Before we move off the question of AYP and this whole thing, I guess I'm wondering what the board's sense is. Are we just victims of this? Is this something that we have no way of
Do we have a choice?
resisting? That's
The
what I'm asking.
The answer is it's tied to monies.
Yeah, that's what I was, is it tied to?
It's tied to monies.
Yeah, it's not so, the impact for us is not so much the Title I monies, which are about $160,000. What's at risk is about $1 million in special ed monies.
Right.
Mhm.
Right, so that really is a key factor here. One of the things that's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of years, I think the consortium that the state is looking at is called Smarter Balance,
Right.
which has multiple indicators and will be done in a slightly different way. Andy had talked about the ability to eventually to have the assessment done online, also looking at different factors in which to make determination as to whether or not schools are quote-unquote making AYP or not, and also based on longitudinal data for longitudinal growth. And what we're hoping will occur is what, with those assessments, is what we're able to do with our Iowa material, is basically to be able to drill down and use that as formative as well as summative assessments to take a look at our programs. Because the way we have been looking at assessment, which I think is the appropriate way, is to take a look at how the kids are doing and where are their strengths and where are the weaknesses. So if in fact, just pick something that is always my favorite topic.
Middle school math.
Middle school math or semicolons, right? So you're looking at it saying, is there a pattern as far as kids not being able to do semicolons or two-digit multiplication with fractions? So taking a look at that and then going back and using that information to reteach, which is part of the premise of the professional learning communities, and looking at the data and being able to use the information to improve instruction and improve student learning. If in fact the new forms of assessment allow us to do that, that will be fine. And if it's able to follow a student over time, that's also fine. But to compare this year's third grade with last year's third grade makes no sense, because they're two completely different populations of kids. But what Andy is going to show you with the Iowa scores is that same group of kids over time. You know, going back to Steve's earlier point, is statistically, maybe aside from Hanover, I don't think there's going to be a school district in this state that is not going to be considered to be a school in need of improvement or a district in need of improvement in 2014. Statistically, it can't happen.
So for the foreseeable future, we have to play along with this game, continue inflicting these tests on people, taking up educational time for a metric that we may or may not be able to glean some value out of, get ourselves labeled as a district in need of improvement, and spend board time and community time explaining that. That's basically it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I look at this, and here's how I see it, right? We're chasing something we're never going to be able to achieve.
Correct.
By definition,
By
can't achieve
definition,
it.
you can't achieve it, right?
Yeah,
So therefore, it becomes a waste of time, right? At the end of the day, it does. And the only reason why we're even participating in this is because, as Ron points out, we're chasing money.
Right.
Right? If I look at, and I'll go back to the audit process we just went through, I go back to our graduation rates, and I'm going to skip ahead to the Iowa tests. All those are, to me, key indicators of how our performance of our school district really is.
Correct.
Right? And this thing is nothing more than a federal mandate to kind of figure out where and how they're going to allocate monies, which means we're all going to fail and we're all going to get money allocation at some point.
The more we fail, the more
It's
money we get.
ridiculous.
Yes, that's true, too. And I guess, to use your example, John, it's like the greyhound chasing the rabbit. You're never going to catch it.
We'll go Ron, then Nancy, if we can.
Couple of things. I believe I was listening to the TV, and they said the national AYP rate is somewhere in the 86 to 87% range.
Correct.
And the federal government is now granting waivers.
Yes, and going state by state. Yes, and there's a potential for everybody
I
to
mean,
get waivers.
with our stuff here, I would just put in for the waiver to see if you could get around this, because they look pretty stupid here, coming up with a law and everyone's failing. And an election year coming up, you don't want the education president, no matter which one it is of what party, to look like he's failing educationally. So they'll come up with waivers on this type of deal. Second thing is, what's really amusing about this as you start along here is the fact is that in the educational disabled, if you really, really do good, and the child gets not special ed and moves out, you get penalized because he's now in the other population. So if you really do poorly and keep everyone down low, you do better.
Monetarily.
No, I mean score-wise. You make AYP if everyone stays
Oh,
there.
yes, yeah.
As you have the education of a child get better, that the differential between his grade and two differentials away close in, and it's not considered a special ed student anymore.
Correct.
He moves out of that population.
Right.
So if you did your job really good, you should never make AYP.
But there's also another interesting component to this. If you look at the economically disadvantaged,
Right.
over an economic poor cycle,
Right.
we're actually pushing down because of dollars, right, of household incomes and what we perceive to be someone that's in need of getting a lunch, we're moving those kids down there, and ultimately the gains are all in that category,
Right.
right? My question to you then is, what was the percentage increase in that category for this year over last?
I would have to look that up for you because it was one of those things that it first jumped out at me, you know, because we had made significant gains, and then I realized it wasn't necessarily things that we had done internally, it was just, you know, student A got moved to that category.
So
because-
I can almost make the assertion that I had a lot of smart kids that are having economic problems then. I mean, that's,
You could just make the
I could
assertion,
say
we had a
that.
lot of, in Londonderry, you saw a lot of
Economy, you could.
people
right,
who lost jobs
right.
Right.
and qualified maybe for the first time, and may not be there long-term, but needed this assistance now. But if they were on the list, the box get checked, and they become in that category.
Let me show you
Doesn't
how
make
that
sense.
one changed. I think it was 3 years ago, we as a district did not qualify for Chapter 1 because all the children were above that level, so we never got
Right.
the economic aid. Now we're getting it in Chapter 1. So that means that population has grown to the point of making it over, because we funded the math and science teachers for Chapter 1, once the state took them away the money, because we didn't have the population to support it
Right.
in that group. So it shows you that there's no educational knowledge gained in that group. It's just an economic, as you just said.
This is one of those deals that the more you know about it, the less you like it.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I
You
think,
know,
I think the other side of this too is, if you look at our population, it's going down,
Yes.
which means that the population that is staying is under economic duress, essentially.
Okay, the population
The
of,
population of Londonderry that is staying,
Yeah.
we're finding the greater part of that population is under economic duress, basically, is what it's saying.
Right. And I think the point that you had made earlier, not to take, being able to use assessment data to improve instruction, I think is important, depending on what assessment data you're using. But the point is, you have to look at the overall picture and what the end result is of a school district. And I've said this at superintendent's meetings and stuff. I find it very well, I don't think the word I used was disconcerting. However, I found it upsetting that a school district where almost 90% of our kids go on to 2- and 4-year schools, where we have a dropout rate of less than 1/4% is considered to be a district in need of improvement. That just,
Doesn't make sense.
it doesn't compute to me, and I don't think it's a fair assessment of the quality of the programming that's going on, or the quality of the people that we have in the district, and the delivery of the service that we have in the
and it
district.
also makes it a little bit hard to explain why we're spending money wisely.
Yeah.
You know, this is my political statement. Here's a good idea that went bad.
Oh, well, yeah.
The answer is it put the right focus on that all children should move ahead. And it did that. It changed the focus of the district for special ed students on feel good to make progress. There's no question in mind that it was the right thing to do. Where we went wrong is that everyone has to reach 100%. I mean, there's a reason why they're categorized, and I have a son that was categorized special education. He had limitations that he had to work around. He was not going to do as well in certain areas as other children. He compensated. And that's what it is. The law never takes into case compensation and how well that child does. I mean, that to me is a great law. I think it changed the focus of districts in the state, in the country. That was the right thing to do. Then they take it too far, says everyone has to be perfect.
If I was a conspiracy theorist, I would say that this was beautifully designed to give a negative impression of public education.
The purpose of this law was to improve or to allow charter schools 100%, and that's what happened. And that's where it's going in the state. That's really what the law was intended to do.
Anything else on, Nancy?
No,
anything?
yeah, I'm done.
Anything else? Back to you.
What I'll do is, with the board's permission, is we'll look at some of the Iowas, but we'll go through it relatively quickly. But I did want the board to see why this data is so important for us. Because as you can see, it allows us, looking at that in vocabulary, to look at that group of children, 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and 1st. And you're looking for, you took the test last April, you took it this March, it's about a 10-month span. That number from the 5.7 to 6.8 should be, roughly in that area of over 10, because then you've got a year's worth of growth. The line that's kind of faint, and if the viewers at home can't see it, I apologize, but this comes off a system that we pay for, and it doesn't really allow us, if I was to try to bring it up, we'd be sitting here for quite a while.
Just think if it was for free.
I know. But the broken line below it is the national norm. So that's the other thing we want to look at, because it tells us how our students are performing against their peers nationally who take the Iowa. And the Iowa is one of the most widely used tests out there, and the Iowa is the official test of the state of Iowa for No Child Left Behind. So that's what they
Andy,
use.
correct me if I'm wrong, for the viewers at home, and on all of the graphs that you provided, I do not believe we dip below the national average on any of your charts.
We do not. We do not. We are doing extremely well over that. Our reading total, you see we went from 6 to 7. Sean, if you just want to scroll through, that'd be great. And jump down to the next page. And again, like I said to the board, I can view this for any of our subgroups as well, so we can track specifically 5th graders who are special education. All right. We can do a number of things with this program, and I think from the terms of bang for your buck, I think this is very well worth it, because what we have done this year, and I want to publicly thank Tom Kramer, he was able to tie our student management system, X2, into our information site. So when our teachers come back this fall, the 25 students assigned to Andy Corey's class, all their data will appear graphically for math, for reading, so that teacher can now view a quick snapshot of her room before those children have even entered the room. And where does the data come from? It's our Iowa data, it's our unit assessments, it's everything in there. What the teacher has told us last year is, it's great having all this, but I need something that, gives me a quick snapshot for planning. And the nice part is now I go in, and here are all my skills. I can see right away, wow, this group of 25 children that I have this year struggle in vocabulary. I don't have to wait till I give any assessments. I don't have to spend any time with these kids. I know that the 25 kids assigned to my room are going to struggle in that area. So that's in the back of my mind every time I plan a lesson. And that graphic display has been very, very helpful for the teachers. The minute we roll over X2, it changes for those teachers. As you know, at 4th and 5th grade, we regroup math after the year begins. As soon as those groupings are done and those children are assigned to the particular teacher, that information automatically rolls into her for mathematics. So if she has a high group, she still knows what the weakness is with the high group. If she has a low group, she knows exactly what the focus is for that group of students.
So Andy, how, as where we are in the technology curve that provides this information to our teachers, how many of the school districts are doing this type of what I would consider almost business intelligence, or scholastic intelligence, because we're a school district? I mean, who else is doing this? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we providing this information, and other districts that are lagging?
We are ahead of the curve because I'm not aware of anybody else that has done it homegrown. We're not going out. We own this. We can change it. It's not proprietary. It's Tom Kramer and his knowledge. And we're actually working, because of the work we did this summer on math, the first 3 weeks of the school year, Tom is going to be looking at how we gather that math data for the new assessments and how that will incorporate into the info site. The site behind you is the IRM, which is the Iowa Results Management. This is something that we pay approximately a couple dollars a student, but its capabilities of the 5-year projections and everything, and they allow us to immediately take it from their site into Tom's, so it becomes ours. And this exists basically for the year that we're in, and we are allowed to download it, so we don't lose any of the historical data. So I think we're ahead of the curve. I can tell you when we went to focus monitoring, most people were amazed that this was our own, and it wasn't going to be really budget dependent.
Yep.
There are other districts that I'm aware of that have paid significant money for these services, and at some point are going to have the discussion around the cost for the service versus the data.
Can at some point can you provide a demo to the board on that, please?
Yes, we absolutely intend to have Tom here probably when we open up school. He's heavily involved in the rollovers of all the different data and all the information for the, that we have to file with the Department of Ed at this time of year. But we met today, and he will definitely be here. The nice part is, for the first time, because it shows the class, we've always had the info site, but we really couldn't go there because it identified specific students. And Tom was always nice enough to bring his children up and allow us to see how it worked. But now with this graphic display, there's no identification of the students, so we can display it, and really everything's kept confidential.
Ron?
2 questions, Andy. First one is, all the information for special education, is that available to the teachers now, that they get the same information?
They get the graphic displays of any student that's in their class, whether they're regular ed or special ed, they're included in that. And then if I was in a pull-out math section, all right, and I'm assigned to, again, Andy Corey is going to automatically, under his teacher assessment on info, get Andy Corey students.
What are we doing on the educational front for the staff to ensure that they have the knowledge to use this information? We're providing them a lot of information. Are we providing them the training and the updates necessary for them? How are we handling that?
What we did, we rolled this out last spring for select teachers. And in a very positive way, it spread like wildfire. And everybody wanted to see what these new capabilities were. I can tell you that the principals are aware of it. It's very user-friendly. I mean, it literally, and when you see the display, there's not much for the work for the teacher. I go to the info site, I select my name, automatically whatever sections I teach. So if I had the high math section at grade 4, I had my homeroom kids for the classes that I have, those are right there. I click on math assessment, there's my graphic display. I click on Iowa assessment, there's my Iowa display. So we made it very user-friendly. Tom, again, credit all goes to him, sitting down with teachers and really listening to what they needed. So I think that would be a great topic to discuss further when Tom does his demonstration.
Does the teacher see on one graph where all the kids are? If I look at the spelling, see 25 little graphs on this so they can see?
No, the teacher gets the overall graph of what her students look like as a class, the 25 students in total. So their strengths and weaknesses as a total. On the left-hand part of the screen, I can click on any one of my individual students that have been assigned to my class. I click on that, and I will get the graph for Ron Campo, or Steve Young, or John Robinson. So I get, from planning a lesson, I get that overall planning piece of knowing where my students overall are struggling as a class.
So you're getting a classroom dashboard, basically?
Yes.
And
then I can drill down to any piece.
Just for clarification purposes, for people who might not know, who is Tom?
Tom works in our IT department. He runs our databases, coordinates the info site, works with all our requirements of the state reports. So that means he works with my office, he works with human resources, he works with the superintendent's office, he works with any of a lot of the federal grant management, not from the financial end, but from the data end. And then he troubleshoots a lot of different items for Sean.
So this system that we're talking about is something that he
He designed it.
created?
Yes.
All right, what are, to reach back to a conversation we had a long time ago, what are we doing about protecting the intellectual property and possibly licensing it?
We have had those discussions, and
Good.
they continue. As far as the intellectual property, we have not, at this point, shared it with another district. Not that we wouldn't want to assist people, but at the same time, we're still in a building stage, is the way I'd put it, that we still have some things that we want to do.
We've just disclosed it pretty broadly. Do we need to get a patent?
I don't think so. I
Why
don't
not?
think so.
Seems like something that would have some value.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can use it to the tattoo patent.
Okay.
So if you want to jump down, let's just jump to the 8th grade, if you would. Keep going. One more, I think. There we go. And again, the topics are basically the same in Iowa. You would have seen that, in 3rd grade, a student starts capitalization. That's why it only appears a couple times. But this is the end of our, K to 8 career, and we're able to track them all the way back to the 4th grade. And again, we have the same standards. We have the national norm. We're looking for, in this case, about 10 months' worth of growth. And if Sean continues to scroll down, you see that if you look at the reading comprehension and the reading total, that's a very strong indication of our students' ability to read at the end of 8th grade. And I think that's a credit to everything we start from, Sight Word Wednesday at Moose Hill Kindergarten, all the way up through the 3-tiered reading approach to the different approaches through AMP and the Reader's Journey at the middle school. So that's really bringing the 3 together. And I think why I like to look at the Iowa data, because to me, it identifies curriculum issues. And that's what we're really after. We want to make sure we don't have a gap or a hole in our curriculum in a specific area. And by breaking it down to each total, it allows us to look at the group of kids and are they growing. And if our curriculum is the way it's intended to be, the students should be growing over time. I think Steve's good.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this takes into account, it tracks the student from the beginning and through to the end. So you're always following the same student.
Yes.
How does it deal with the fact that we have students that move in and out of the district? I understand that that's 20% or more. You wouldn't think so.
Right. If I went to Andy Corey's children who moved into the district this year,
Yes,
you
they
would
did,
see,
as a matter of
yes,
fact.
you would see this year be the first piece of data gathering that would appear on the info site, which is also a help for a teacher, because then you realize, oh, all right, there's no data before this, they must have moved in at that point in time.
Yeah.
So the minute you take an Iowa with us, it goes on. The minute you take unit assessment.
So it doesn't skew the data, it takes into account they are not,
Correct.
they haven't been in the district.
Correct. And this graph represents the entire 8th grade. I can also get the same graph, which is very helpful when you're in an IEP meeting or a parent meeting, to show the parent that a child is making growth over time, because I can do it for the individual student.
Okay.
I guess one of the things I would look, I would assume if the person moved in the 5th grade, he'd be in this group of students.
Yep, yes.
Okay. One of the things, I'd like to see
Yep.
is going to be, I would like to see the graph of students in Londonderry that have done the 4 or 5 years. Because that really tells me what the district is doing. We have the students here, they're all in the district, they've taken the benefits or the liabilities that we have put into our system. What does that graph look like compared to this?
Okay.
Those 2 graphs there would tell me how we're doing as a district in the growth.
We'll put that in the queue for Tom. Yeah, he will get to that. And then if you just want to jump down, we'll go right. Is that keep going. 8, go right into the 9th grade. And then we end our Iowa testing at the 9th grade. And I just want to, you know, indicate, when you start to look at these vocabulary and reading comprehensions, you know, basically when you get to 7th grade, it starts in 6th grade, but real intensive from 7th grade right through, you know, your high school, is the reading in the content area, which is something we started a number of years back. We had, if the board remembers, we sent a group out to Denver, and were trained by Chris Devani, and then last year we brought Chris Devani here, and I think that's really paying great dividends. I think it has become something that is a part of us now. It used to be something we do differently, and now if you were to walk into the majority of classrooms, you see word walls, you see vocabulary specific to the content area, you see a number of things. And I think, again, when you then combine that with the K-8 reading program, you really see how it all comes together. The same scores if you just scroll down to math.
Before you go.
Yep.
Am I reading that correctly? We, one up, Sean, just one line up. Are we really seeing this cohort of 9th graders is reading at a college freshman level?
We are basically saying that that cohort, if a college freshman was to take this test, that's where they would score.
Okay.
Okay? It's a little different than saying our students are ready for college freshmen. We're saying, okay, it's a semantic, but I don't want to confuse the public out there. What it really is saying is that we have topped out of the Iowa.
I guess the question I ask is, what other data, all the others seem to be reasonable numbers.
Mhm.
These two here appear to be
Well,
added a norm for, it's 3 and 4 grade levels above.
Yeah.
I
well,
guess the question I'm asking you is, what are you using to validate that's a real number? It's just off the graph for me, it just doesn't.
I mean, the validation in this case is the norm reference of the Iowa because it's.
I'm talking about what are the tests that we do that shows that our comprehension in 8th or 9th grade is that far above the level? Do our
Is
end
there-
of semester reading tests,
You've-
does it
you've-
show up on it should show up on this test here?
Well, how many
Right.
kids do we have in
And-
advanced reading? Might
Right.
be,
Right.
But
And I
this is the
think-
whole cohort, that's saying virtually all, if that's the average,
yeah.
that means,
Well, it would be the test itself then, right?
what I'm saying is, I guess
there
what I'm
any
saying is,
other
I'm
tests
seeing one
that-
test.
Confirm it.
What is the confirmation? You say,
Yeah.
you know what, in the reading test in the NEAPS, we're seeing our children score very high in that. I guess that's what I'm asking, what is the verification? Because those
Right.
numbers just kind of,
Well, I could give you, if you looked at the kneecap and broke it down into like proficient with distinction,
yes.
there's a significant population of Londonderry that is significant with distinction in math and reading, and I can get those numbers very easily for you, but that is significant. I think this, in terms of the norm reference, when you again reference against their peer group across the country, because of where we are, the value we place on education, I think that's why you see the significant difference. But I think if you looked at, you know, again, going back to where we're accepted to colleges, what our acceptance rate is, looking at who performed with distinction on the kneecap and things like that, PSAT scores, our SAT scores, I think we can validate that number.
I'm going back to real bottom line data. We do end of semester testing, we do the kneecaps, and I would expect that we can look at something, and it may not be that high, but to say, you know what, this number here is based on, you know, 40% of our people in comprehension, because I think that's one of the categories in kneecap when you break it down,
Yep.
is above this. It makes sense.
Yep.
I got this other graph that makes sense that validates those numbers, because if I was there, I'd say,
Well, you know, I mean, to give you an example, this is a test that we use in a lot of ways to help us determine who gets into the accelerated track at the middle school. There are very few kids in the accelerated track coming into 6th grade that are not a 13.
Yeah, but that's only a track. When I look at
I know.
13 for the whole
Right.
group of them,
Right.
that means
Yeah.
almost everyone's in an accelerated track.
Right. Yep. Again, based against the national norm.
So it's weighted.
Right.
But I think we're looking for
I
validation.
can, I can do that. That-
I'm
yeah.
just, it's fantastic numbers. I just want to make sure I understand it, how it compares to other backup data
Yeah.
to say yes,
Yeah.
and the kneecaps
Yeah,
confirm it, and our end-of-year testing or end of
Yep.
chapter testing show that comprehension
Yep.
is something that we have done well.
we can do that. Charlie, do you want to jump ahead? I wanted to finish tonight with a quick little video. It's only a couple minutes. We're going to be showing it at the administrative retreat, so I apologize to some of my colleagues who get to see it today and tomorrow. If you want to
Cover your eyes and ears.
cover your eyes.
Oh, it was leaning on your chair.
I like the color.
Should you stick a microphone in front of the speaker?
Yeah, instead of
Sean?
talking.
Sean, should you stick a microphone in front of the speaker?
And so the kits were handed out. Everyone identical. Everyone with a set of precise instructions. Each student set off to work. Charlie knew how to follow directions. He made great progress and was quite proud of his work. Meanwhile, Maya was taking her time. She watched the world around her, noticing other ways things go places. The next morning, Charlie was finished and carefully inspected his work. But a noise interrupted his thoughts. Wow, said Charlie. What is that? You didn't follow the directions, did you? I started to, said Maya, but I wanted to try something different. Maya, what does that have to do with a go-kart? Asked Charlie. Who said it had to be a go-kart? Suddenly my project doesn't look very exciting. Oh, but you're a great builder, said Maya. Hey, maybe we should work together. And so they did. First, they compared notes. Charlie was good at details. Maya, good at dreaming up ideas. Each had a different approach to getting things done. Then they got to work. Side by side, they helped one another to build something new, something inspired, something spectacular. The next morning, everyone gathered for the final challenge, the big race. Each student stood alongside his or her finished project, each cart a perfect replica. Well, almost perfect. Ready? Asked Charlie. Ready as I'll ever be, said Maya. Some of the other students weren't so convinced. Ha! You may think you're going places, but you're just going to lose.
Students, start your engines. On your mark. Get set.
Charlie shouted, Maya, they're all ahead of us. What are we waiting for? No worries, said Maya. Flaps down, throttle up. What? Whoa, did you see that? And we have our winner. Charlie and Maya were ecstatic. We did it. We finished, said Charlie. Finished? I don't think so. We've only just begun. Right. Flaps down, throttle up. And off they went. They really were going places. They were going above and beyond.
wanted to finish with that because we spent a lot of time talking about data. But we're educating students, and we need to be very conscious that we're teaching them to think, to share, to create, and grow, which have been identified as 4 critical areas for the next century. And part of the problem is, if we always just get the directions and do exactly what we are told, we may not always end up with the best product or the best solution. And I think it's the balancing of that data to remembering that our mission is giving wings to children's dreams. And in children, we need to really encourage them to really think, to collaborate, to share, to grow, and to move forward. It's kind of scary, as a dad sitting here, that we don't know what the jobs are going to be for my kids. And yet we're teaching and working in an environment that needs to continue to evolve. And we're showing that at the administrative retreat because as a school district, we know we need to continue to evolve. Yes, we'll use the good, hard facts of data, but we have to remember those are individuals in front of us, and one of them might have the next great idea, and we need to allow them to go with that and dream. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any additional questions, comments?
Two things. I noticed on your graphs on the Iowa, 6th grade always tends to have that little dip there. And I think it really shows that from that point of that dip upwards, that our middle school educational process makes up for that, and it's a constant improvement, a linear improvement, which is very impressive. And then secondly, to your video, I think the kneecap No Child Left Behind kit may not want to be followed.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for enduring the annual grilling about No Child Left Behind. All righty. Next appears to be Peter.
Yes, onto the exciting environment of school finance.
Swinging Swirling World.
I was told late in the process that I had my little chart flip-flop, so I'm just passing out so we have the right companies and the right rates. As the board is aware, back in June, we approved the formation of the capital lease for FY12. What I'm asking tonight is simply the approval of the rate. We have 2 of them here. The recommendation, obviously, is for municipal leasing at 2.49.
Any questions?
I wish I could get it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the lease for 3 years at a payment of $188,843 to the municipal leasing consultants.
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by John. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, that's 5-0.
Okay.
Year-end financial report.
The auditors are on campus. They are in the boardroom, as those who are in non-public were aware. We expect them to wrap up their field work on Thursday, and then sometime in December, they will present to the board their findings of the FY11 audit. Some of the numbers, well, all the numbers I'm going to give you are pre-audit. There will always be some adjustments, but I think you get an understanding of where we ended up. Year-end balance is estimated at $347,943. That's really made up of 3 components. Remember back in South School, we had a bond issue for South School. There's $94,595 coming back from that project. That's obviously complete. Excess revenue of $94,317, and return of appropriated funds of $159,031. As you may recall, in March, the voters approved to use $50,000 of any year-end surplus as a transfer to the Maintenance Trust Fund. That leaves a balance of $297,943 estimate to be returned to the taxpayers for revenue for the December 2011 tax rate.
How does that compare with what we had estimated in the budget?
My next line says, we estimated revenue from surplus to be $200,000 when we did the FY12 budget. Any questions on that piece?
Yeah, so the net is 297, 493.
297, 943, give or take, any final adjustments.
Okay, so the amount that the taxpayers will get back, because we cannot carry a fund balance pending the audit,
Is that?
is about 300,000.
Yes.
And that is how much on the tax rate?
100,000, 3 cents, so
Okay, so,
so it's actually 3 cents more than we anticipated, because we had $200,000 as a revenue source.
that's where I was going. So the change in what we talked about during our budget season is 3 cents less.
Right, not to be confused with 3 cents less from the dilutive session.
If all that works out, that would be a total of 6.
Yes,
But,
correct.
okay.
Okay, on the revenue side, as I customarily show on table 1, the year-end figures for the trusts and outside revenue sources for the district. The one I want to point out is, during the FY12 budget development, we anticipated the use of $100,000 of impact fees. We're at 89,000, so that should be no problem to be able to use the full $100,000 as a revenue source for FY12. All the revenue numbers came in as expected, including the $30,000 over in CAD aid. And as we mentioned over and over, Medicaid is tough, even in third quarter, and sure enough, it came in a little bit under than we expected. But we kind of figured that the way it was running, but as you know, there have been a few times when the last 3 days of June, we get few checks. But overall, still, revenues came in over the estimates for the total. Questions on revenues? And finally, the expenditure side, I'll be brief. As the board was aware, all year long, we were concerned about the revenue side. We identified early in the process of the year the hole created by the health insurance premiums. We were nervous with that hole, plus if you used historical projections of the cost of substitutes in the district, out-of-district placements. Obviously, we have some idea, even early in the year, of staff turnover savings. As we mentioned, in second quarter, we were looking at a $200,000 to $300,000 hole. We, management and administrative council, put several processes together, the limitation of substitutes. Also, as I mentioned here, we did controlled spending the second semester, and with a little luck, the out-of-district placements did not come in as expected, and the changes of use of substitutes did produce, basically we broke even on the budget on substitutes, which, as you know, we usually run about 200 to 250 over budget. I believe regular ed went over budget in substitutes by about 35,000, and special ed in substitutes actually came under budget by 30,000. So that savings plus the drastic reductions in out-of-district placement put together a positive of the 197 at the end of the year. So we really dug ourselves out of a hole, and the credit goes to everybody's effort and cooperation. I mean, we were looking pretty bad for about 2 or 3 months with that hole because of health insurance.
Ron?
On the health insurance for this year coming up, not last year, when is our open enrollment? And that's the first question. Okay. Are we in a hole this year? How did we fare this year compared to what we budgeted?
There are a few, not nearly the significant number that we had in FY11.
Okay, so we should not, we're not expecting any sort of hole. It's
Right.
basically a wash type of deal.
Yes.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
On the food services, we've already taken care of that.
I'm
so we
sorry,
don't-
yes. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, you can ask.
Yeah, question is, I think we've already solved that issue by increasing the
Yeah.
regular lunches. So we should come up flat with that, and we should not have a deficit this year.
Correct.
$2.
But I was gonna say that to finish up the report, that food service did come in at $110,000 deficit for the year.
I'd like to come back to this savings in the substitute line. I'm assuming that we managed to do that without any negative impact on the quality of services.
Yes, and we also got, as much, and I'm gotta give a lot of credit to the administrators for working with the substitutes, and managing that. We also got lucky in that we did not have, a number of catastrophic illnesses. I'm also aware of the fact that right now we are looking at least one that's going to have a significant impact on us. So we got lucky. Plus, the administrators did a great job. We didn't, just to give you an example, at a given point, we didn't hire substitutes for instructional assistants. When they were out, that was it. So we clamped down on that. We also got cooperation from, teachers on stuff on professional days and so on, so that we could keep that number down, because it was in everybody's best interest, in fact, to do that. Because going back to what Peter had said, we were really nervous about that health insurance hole that we had at the beginning. So we didn't compromise programs and services.
Now, I know that we can't project getting lucky again going forward in terms of catastrophic illnesses and things like that. But of the other strategies that you use to hold down this cost, do any of them apply going forward so that we might be able to continue making savings in this area?
We are going to continue to do the things that we did last year, absolutely. I'll be very honest, here's what my concern is. If in fact, let's say for the sake of argument, that 1.1 million goes away, we may be at if people don't vote for it, maybe a point in saying, okay, at the high school level, we're not gonna hire a substitute Spanish teacher. If you've got Steve Young for Spanish, you go into study hall, B period.
Maybe better in study.
Yeah.
But that would be an impact on
That's right.
educational services.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering about the things that we might have been able to do that didn't impact educational services.
Well, we made sure we had substitutes for classroom teachers, and those were covered. We were able to cut down on the number of days that people were out of class. We didn't hire substitutes for instructional assistants. If it was a one-on-one assistant that we needed for a special ed kid, we made sure we had it. But in other cases, we did not hire, and we were able to save money that way. And then, everybody pulled together, and the principals were really good about doing it. Teachers were really good, and we were able to come right in there. But, anything can happen. I mean, when Andy was principal at the middle school, we had a whole slew of maternity cases which ran up our substitute account. And then we had a couple of years where we had a number of faculty members that had significant illnesses or long-term illnesses and that happened. So it's, you try and play the averages. And as everybody knows, we always under budget the substitute account, always, because we don't want to be in a position where we're double taxing the taxpayer. In essence, we know that on average, we'll have X amount of dollars for teacher turnover money, and we use that to fund the overage on the substitute line. So it's not like we're building in, here's this found $200,000, $300,000.
But to reiterate, you do think there are some strategies and learnings that you've found over the course of this year that are sustainable through the coming years?
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Without a doubt.
Anything else on the financial report, anybody? Anything else on anything, anybody? Do we need to continue non-public?
1 week from today, it's deliberative session.
Yes.
It is not on a Friday, like we always have it. So 1 week from today.
And yes, there's childcare.
Yes.
Right.
What may, and I don't know if I'm crossing a line here, would it be could we send out an email blast from the schools just telling the people, parents, that there is a deliberative session? Is that, I don't know, I'm asking a question. Just an informational thing, informational type of setup. I don't know whether any other means to get it out. I know it's in the papers and stuff
Put it in
like.
the papers, we posted on the website, running on
Road
21.
signs.
Huh?
And the road signs.
And on road signs.
Is it on all roads? On all of them?
As far as I know, yes. On, if you go through the middle of town, the high school, middle school, and Matthew Thornton have it, North has got it, and South has it on its deliberative session, so we've
How long
posted.
have they been up? A week or so
I've
now?
seen the middle school ones.
A
Oh,
week.
A week, yeah.
Week
yeah,
or so.
at least a week, if not more cases, because I know before I left for my niece's
Yeah, they
wedding,
were up,
they
yeah.
had been up, so that's there. I'll check.
Yeah, if we're posting it on our bulletin boards, then I'm not seeing anything that an email would not send out. You're not asking about anything.
And just announce something that says, just a reminder, deliberative session,
The 23rd of
the
August.
23rd of August, babysitting provided, if you're interested.
That's what I'm looking for.
Is there
Simple.
more information on our website that we want to refer people to?
I would just,
Okay,
no.
leave it to you. All right, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. If you're in this room, you're on the air.